purpose under pressure. It's about that pressure, that thing that tries to knock us off of our path, off of our purpose, and the thing that we're trying to do good. But what happens when that pressure is the purpose? And that thing that's trying to knock you off, it's also what you're fighting for. We're talking about family here. We're talking about helping other people. And the things that can cause us the pain are the things that we have to fight for the most. Gail Laux is our guest next on Purpose Under Pressure. Well, the heat is on. Let's get cooking. This is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about people, business folks, community leaders, people, normal, regular old people just like you and me. We wake up in the morning, we swing our legs out of bed, we put our feet on the floor, and we get after it, right? And the pressures always seem to find us. They always kind of try to knock us off our purpose. And it's what happens next that is what this show is all about. Do we let that pressure kind of steer us in a different direction, take a shortcut, maybe don't even do it at all? Or do we stand up to it? That's what this is all about. It's Purpose Under Pressure. If you are back and you're enjoying the show, please don't forget to tell someone about it. You can do that by liking us, by following, subscribing. Tell anyone. It's how we let people know this show is out there. There are 100 billion podcasts, and this is just one. And I'd like to make a difference with it. That means people need to hear it. So if you'd like to kind of push this along, I'd really appreciate it. And I say thank you in advance. Purpose Under Pressure is brought to you by my friends at Sandler by the Ruby Group. They are sales training, business development professionals, serving sales professionals nationwide. From their Akron, Columbus, Ohio locations, they're also in Jacksonville, Florida. They are even in Capital Region, upstate New York. It's sales training, it's business growth, it's revenue generation. But the thing that makes them different, the reason they're a part of this program, is that they are on purpose. They don't do it with gimmicks. They don't do it with techniques. Well, there are some techniques, but they're not shady. They're not glitzy. It's real. And it's how you ought to be running your business and how your sellers ought to be representing you. So if you're looking for that kind of an angle to kind of differentiate your business, Sandler by the Ruby Group can help you out. If you'll check them out online, I'd appreciate it. They are at rubygroup.sandler.com. I met our guest today many, many years ago, and she was doing something amazing and something good and something different. And I'm really excited to introduce you to Gail Laux. She's the founder of the Ohio Bird Sanctuary in Richland County. The Ohio Bird Sanctuary would not exist without Gail and a lot of other people and a lot of vision and mission. And it's not something that everybody wants to do. And so it is almost the definition of Purpose Under Pressure. Let's talk about it. And let's introduce Gail Laux. Welcome to Purpose Under Pressure.
Thank you, Bryan. Glad to be here this morning.
I'm really glad you're here too. It's been a long time. I haven't seen you in quite a while, and you have retired from the Ohio Bird Sanctuary and you're doing different things. Is that right?
Well, kind of, yes. So I have stepped out of the role of executive director. Okay. Often, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's often a tough transition for an organization to go from the founder to the next leadership. And so I'm still involved as the founder, helping to generate revenue for operations. And I'd still like to go out and volunteer and help. So yeah, I couldn't walk away completely, but I've handed over the reins to the next generation.
And that's what this show is kind of all about, isn't it? The purpose doesn't go away just because different things change. What drives you in the first place, and you can't just turn it off. You can't. No. It's hard for people to retire or to do something. It's like, this is my life, right? So tell me how it's going. Tell me some good things. I want to talk about the bird sanctuary. I want to talk about you, and we want to talk about the development and all the things that kind of cause pressure along the way. But brag a little bit. Tell me, you won a big award in Richland County, the Chamber Recipients Award, which is something. I got the
Chamber's Award from the Chamber of Commerce, which was very much, unexpected. But I was very honored and humbled by that. And it was, what I loved was obviously what people see in you that you don't always see in yourself. You get to see through those interactions. And I was glad to hear that so much of it was that I have supported people in a very kind manner and have made a difference in this community. So when you hear those types of words about yourself, it's definitely reaffirming that you're on the right path, right?
Yeah. It makes it kind of, it's not really, it doesn't change why you did it, but it is nice to know that people noticed. Right. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit, Gail, about the Ohio Bird Sanctuary, beginning of it and kind of the success of it. And let's let people know kind of what this is all about. Bit.
So it started back in the late 80s on the farm of my husband and I. Once again, joint effort from the local park district and the wildlife officer. There was a need in the community. And I had a passion for the birds of prey, but more about educating people about them. So for about 10 to 15 years, the project was operated and grew on our small farm in Belleville. And then it was time to make a decision. And that's that purpose under pressure. It was either, do we slowly just close our doors because I was had a 2-year-old and pregnant with another, and do we kind of redirect our lives, or do we take the next step? It had to move. It had to do one or the other. It couldn't stay on the farm when I'm also raising little girls on the farm at the same time. So we had to make a big decision, and the community really and those around us encouraged us to make the big step of, let's find a place for the bird sanctuary. And for about 3 to 5 years, we were pursuing the perfect property, which we found, which we partnered with an old Boy Scout camp that was struggling financially. And we were able to step alongside them and manage the property and grow the bird sanctuary out on beautiful 55 acres of Camp Avery Hand. And then, which we'll go back over the story, grew, more public involvement. And the direction has always been about creating these opportunities for people. And one of the things that through was always a passion, but became a personal endeavor because of our daughter ended up being in a wheelchair, was making nature accessible for everybody. So fast forward to today, 36 years later, the bird sanctuary is woven into the community, is the top facility for rehabilitating birds of prey, is completely accessible through a treehouse built by the treehouse masters. And we are now a spot that individuals who have disabilities can engage in nature along with everybody. What we want is not just a place for them, but their place that their families can bring them. So it brings in that really cohesive nature and supporting families and supporting all individuals. So it has grown and then went through the last phase of maturity, which was handing it off to new leadership. So a lot has happened in 36 years. Yeah.
36 years. And so if you can think back to that time when the pressures were kind of making you decide, did you envision this kind of impact, this kind of growth, this kind of really amazing thing that you've been able to bring to the community?
So if you ask me that, my initial one would be no, until during the process of telling OBS's story, I dug through the archives. And you can go back and look at exactly what I said today, I was saying all those years ago. So it was the driving core values of it. And we found old documents that had been created by the mayor of Mansfield back in the early 90s, and the layout actually over time grew to that, where it really was, it was nice to see we never got derailed. Like, a lot of things happened and we were always listening to what the community wanted, but it always still stayed on that, really true to its mission, and people believed in it. And that's a huge one when you have those individuals who supported you 25 years ago. When they come to the sanctuary now, they're so happy to be involved in that, and it's still what they wanted it to be. It hasn't morphed into something they don't recognize anymore.
And I love the fact that you looked back on it. You really didn't think that was what you were doing, but everything you put in paper, everything you talked about, I imagine if you could draw a picture of it, that's purpose.
Right. Yeah.
That's something deeper than even any of us really know. It's just kind of, for however you want to believe, it's part of us.
Right.
And you knew it back then. You just didn't know it. Is it hard to generate community support for something as specific, and maybe people don't see the vision as an Ohio bird sanctuary? I'm sure with the nonprofit, you had to generate a lot of support and a lot of, fundraising and different things. Was that difficult to quote unquote sell to the community?
It was, when somebody had a preconceived notion of what we were. And so, and I do remember talking with a donor where they were like, well, we're not really like, well, I think probably one of the best stories, if you want a good story. So we did our first endowment campaign, and had one of the very philanthropic families in the community had not been involved at the bird sanctuary. They were brought out to visit us. And I have kind of all what I'm planning on doing. I'm going to fly one of our hawks. Like, it's all going to be about the birds. Well, at the same time, we were running our summer camps because it's all about kids. So all along our brick walkway are 25 kids with hammers building birdhouses. So it's not feeling really peaceful in the moment. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be hard. And so I start to talk, and this gentleman kind of stops me mid-sentence. He goes, I don't really like hawks. They eat the birds in my bird feeder. And he said, but what's going on with these children over here?
Yeah.
And so that's where you pivot, right? And you're like, okay, I'm going to talk about something, and then they were one of our lead donors in that capital campaign that we were having. And so part of it is, what your core values are and what you're trying to accomplish, but don't get like, so don't put on the blinders and not hear what people are saying. And so I think one of it is some people think we're all about birds. Some of people only see, that we're hiking trails. So that's been very much our, we have to pay attention to that. I do a lot of asking of people, like, what is the bird sanctuary to you? And so you want to know that you're like, oh, wow, they don't know this piece of us, or wow, that's interesting that's what they grab onto. So you always have to be asking people so that that they understand. And the internet, honestly, Bryan, has solved 99% of our issues, because all you have to do is, Google and you get images, because most people
Yeah,
would pull in the
that's right. They see what it's
driveway,
really about.
yeah, and say, I had no idea all this was here. Well, now they do, right? Because
Mhm.
the internet marketing is so much easier for those things now than when we got started. You had to constantly paint the picture for people because they couldn't just press a button and see it the way they can now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you kind of started off the conversation with that. You said we've done this with the whole bird sanctuary, but look what we've actually done. And you talked about for handicapped children and those in wheelchairs and being access and community access and things of that sort. It's not so much about birds. You mentioned nature. You mentioned conservation. It is about birds. It's all about birds, and yet it's about so much more than that. And so, yeah, the internet has solved your marketing problem a little bit. That's for
It
sure.
did.
But
Yes, it did.
so tell me a little bit about pressure, because I know it's not easy. It's never easy to run a nonprofit. I think maybe sometimes harder than business. I think sometimes people think nonprofits mean like for loss.
Right, right,
And you
right.
just
Well,
got to do the minimum, but you haven't done the minimum. You've grown and you've reinvested and you've kind of brought back a lot of value. Where have the pressures been that have tried to get in the way of knocking you off of your purpose?
one of them was having people grasp onto what you just said, Bryan. This is a nonprofit business. That word business, people
Mm,
don't like. They want you to be a charity. Well, a charity is going to survive completely on generosity, which is lovely but fluctuates. A business is going to have a business plan, and that's probably from the very
that's right.
beginning. I probably see more business like than a lot of my peers. But if you look where the bird sanctuary has grown towards, it is because we have run it as a nonprofit business in all the professional ways that it needed to, without losing that core mission. The
Hmm.
pressures were a lot. It was I had a friend in '95 when we were thinking about getting the property. He ran the World Bird Sanctuary, and he said to me, "Are you sure?" And he said, "You're about to get an albatross on your back, which is, as you may know, one of the biggest birds,
Big bird.
and
Yeah.
it's not getting off." And what he meant by that, which I don't know that I understood at the moment, but I do now, is once you take that step, you have asked people to give of their time and give of their resources, and this now belongs to them. And it's your responsibility to be a good steward of what everybody has contributed towards. And so that's probably the biggest pressure that hangs over my head all the time, is that
Still.
yeah, still that oh, absolutely, that, well, when this whole founder transition was huge, because people are like, what, this is theirs, it's not mine, and I'm just to be the steward of that and make sure that it continues to grow and flourish. And it was a 7-year process we went through, getting ready for hiring a new executive director. It was very intentional, but in that 7 years, there was COVID, right? There was lots of other things, as you said, that kind of, which we had put a date that I would step down December of 2023, I think, if I'm correct. And we were only 6 months off schedule, which was pretty
Okay.
impressive. Yeah. So
Was it
considering that we, obviously with COVID actually helped the bird sanctuary. If you want to talk a pressure thing, because what did everybody want to do?
nature? Wanted to get
Yeah.
outside,
So
do something.
correct.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Was it hard? So there's a lot of talk about succession planning, especially now as generations are changing and our kids are taking over and things of that sort. There's a lot of the businesses going through those transitions. Was it difficult to find a mini me to steal that from the movies? I mean, this is your baby.
yeah, this is my
This is
baby.
your
So
thing.
yeah, so that's what you can't look for. That's what founders look
That's
for,
right.
is somebody who's them. So one of the things we identified during that 7 years was I did all the medical care on the birds. I was cleaning gutters. I was fundraising. I was, running to be an administrative. Like I was wearing all those hats. So the first thing we had to do was hire the talent. Like we needed to hire an executive director. You're not going to hire another founder, because when I started this, it wasn't as big, right? So now you've got a staff of 12, almost 100 acres. There's a lot more going on. So that was sort of that process. So what we were really looking for was somebody who had administrative skills and a passion for nature. And we found that in Julie Schwartz, who had worked with us for a little bit when she had taken a break from being in the public school district, worked with us, went back, was the head of school for the Discovery School, which is a school in our town.
Mm-hmm.
And so she understood the bird sanctuary, but she had that administrative skill. And that was sort of what we had. But in the meantime, I had to find the other mini me's, as you said. And probably the biggest keystone in that is the gal Amanda, who's in charge of our birds. A little bit easier to find people to educate, to be administrator, but to find somebody with the skill sets,
That's a niche.
that's a niche. And then who
Yeah,
wants to live in Mansfield and work for pennies, right? So
that's
who
right.
is that person? So Amanda started in high school with us as an intern, went off to do great things. She's a certified vet tech. And I probably courted her for over 6 months. Like, I can't leave if you don't come back, was pretty much
Hmm.
the conversations we had. And she came back when we didn't have all the capital improvements we have now. And so, but I promised her, I said, this is coming. Like, you will be able to do x-rays on site, surgeries on site, like all those skills that you bring to the table. We now have the flight cages used by other facilities in the state. So the bird sanctuary is the pinnacle of rehabilitation in the state. Great story just went out about Star, an eagle, where the division found it and they said it's not going anywhere but the Ohio Bird Sanctuary. So those are those feathers in the cap, to use a bad pun, but those are those things that I am very proud of, was able to start something, but then find the people that are going to
Yeah.
continue helping it grow and do greater things.
Yeah, continuing the thing that you love so much and that you're so passionate about.
Right.
So let's talk about a little bit more purpose under pressure. You have this purpose, and you can tell it was ingrained because the purpose knew what it looked like even before you did.
Right.
But then along the way, the pressures came, and you mentioned it already. I'd like to go back to it. You mentioned your daughter ending up in a wheelchair, and I don't know the entire story, but I know it goes deeper than that. And I know that was your family is your purpose as well, and in this case, also your pressure.
Right.
Can you talk about that?
Looking at the typical salesperson, everything they do day in and day out, if we simplify all of that and really boil it down, they have two superpowers. First superpower that salespeople have is how they behave. Second superpower they have is what they say. As a seller, we only have two problems. We either said something or did something that we should not have said or done, or we didn't say something or do something that we should have said or done.
You mentioned your daughter ending up in a wheelchair, and I don't know the entire story, but I know it goes deeper than that. And I know that was your family is your purpose as well, and in this case, also your pressure.
Right.
Can you talk about that?
So we lost Samantha 13 years ago. When she was in junior high, she was diagnosed with what's called NF2. And this is a condition in which you grow tumors on your nervous system. So first thing it does is often it's on your auditory nerve. Start to lose her hearing, and then she loses her balance because there's pressures on the brain, then they're on the spine. So gradually had her to the point where she was legally blind, deaf, and in a wheelchair. So during this process, I'm thinking, obviously, I need to start handing this over now. Like, my job is going to be Sam's full-time caregiver. But the pressure in that is that's what I felt as a mother. But if I did that at that point, I don't think the bird sanctuary would still be here today. It wasn't ready. It wasn't mature enough. The people weren't in place. There was lots of elements that were not going to have it be successful if I stepped away. At that same time, this is where your purpose is not, your purpose is put onto you. You don't always get to choose it, as you know.
That's right.
I was contacted to help either close or rebuild another local nonprofit. And everybody at that point is thinking, how in the world do I have time for this? Well, ended up being a gift, because what I was able to do was an executive director as a local therapeutic riding center. So spoke to me personally. I have horses. I definitely embrace animals as therapeutic animals or aids. And so what we ended up doing was I was able to hire somebody in to be to do bird care and also to be able to do construction projects. So kind of that starting to figure out who those mini me's are. So temporarily hired a gentleman from Minnesota who came in to fill that niche at OBS. So because what I couldn't do for OBS was be there physically, right? Because I had to take care of Sam. So at that time, I could be that administrative head. I could do the fundraising, but I couldn't be there. And so I was doing the same thing for Ray Melton, the Therapeutic Equestrian Center. Couldn't always physically be there. But one of the things that came out of that was when I went and visited the Therapeutic Riding Center, one of the things that really jumped out at me was it wasn't handicap accessible. And I'm like, it's your purpose, right? So here's an organization that had a purpose, but hadn't put all the pieces together. So that motivates me. And my confidant, Samantha, in that was she helped me figure out what they needed to do to that historical old polo farm to make it work. So Sam was part of the pressure, but very much the ally and part of the purpose. And that's where, it was amazing. So during that transitional time, I could still keep the bird sanctuary moving forward. We did not anticipate losing Sam as early as we had, which at that point I shifted back into being more time at the sanctuary and grow it to the point where we could get to where we are now, which was a very healthy founder transition for the organization. But pressure, I make it sound easy, don't I, Bryan? Like, oh yeah, I just did this and this and this, and it's all good. So if you saw
nothing in between.
No, if you saw me during that time, I had lost a ton of weight and also my hair. And so then people think I'm battling cancer at the same time, which fortunately I was not battling that type of illness. But the stress toll, I was doing everything, but I can't say that I was managing the pressure as well as my story sounds like I did. And then I had to learn, if I don't take care of myself, I can't, none of this, I've lost everything. So that during that whole process, I had to learn how do I handle the pressure without internalizing the pressure, which I'm sure
you had to figure that out. And it's one of the reasons I started this show. If it helps you at all to understand kind of the meaning behind all this, is when I was in sales and businesses would struggle and say, yeah, but Joe's got it all figured out. He's got it easy. Why is it so hard for me? We make things seem easy. When people look at us, we've got this facade and everything's strong and everything's good. And yet behind the scenes, we've all got our stuff. And some people's stuff is a lot deeper and harder and more painful. But everybody's got a problem. And you can look as strong as you are, and you can be as successful as the sanctuary is, and you can accomplish these things. But people need to know it. I'm just like you. We're all struggling with things. And your story is exactly what I'm trying to portray to others, is to never give up and never stop and never think you're alone, because you're not the only one that's been through this. Right. Other people are going through it too. Right. I'm interested, Gail, and I don't know if this is a fair question or not, but when that happens, when you find out about Sam, you find out about the diagnosis, and you're knee deep into building things, maybe waist deep into building things, and all of a sudden, how do you not give up on one purpose to focus 100% on the other? Had you done that, everything would be different and not as, lack of better terms, great as it is now.
Correct.
So you made the right choice. But at the time, you must have wanted to just throw it all in and just focus on Sam. But yet you made a decision to focus on Sam in another way that has allowed her to be part of the purpose.
Right. And
Is that a fair
no,
question?
it is a fair question. And I would have to say, I had a staff member at that point that I would call. Abby was running our educational programs and helping with the bird care. And she had been with us since she was about 13. She would volunteer. And I would talk about somebody who would, she'd say it, but she was internalizing it. I would call and say, at one point Sam was down at Wright State University. So I am managing her from a 2.5-hour trip with her aides. And I would get a call. Sam's interpreter hadn't shown up. Her aide wasn't there, whatever it was. And I'm having to jump in the car, and I got 2.5 hours to go down there and support Sam in any way I can. Well, I may have had a program. There might be a bird that needs to go in for surgery. Who knows what's going on in that moment? And I would call Abby, and every single time she'd go, no problem, I got it.
I got it.
Well, then I found out later that then she'd get off the phone and be like, the panic would say, but she always allowed me. She knew where I needed to be, and she had such a passion for the bird sanctuary. So the reason the bird sanctuary survived that, and I never got so derailed that I had to give it up, were the people around me that believed in it and were supporting us. And that's my church family. That's obviously my birth, all of those things that saw us through there. One of the things, and this is, you have to be reminded, because if you really want me to tell you what happened in the last couple of years of Sam's life, I can't, because they're a blur. But I did go back and find a book that we would do. And so every day I realized that with Sam, and this is with anything in life, she would make assumptions because we weren't communicating well. So you can imagine, she can't see, she can't hear. We're doing tactile sign language, which I was awful at. And so she had this computer thing called a My Reader that she could scan and make the letters huge and bring them across her screen, because her eyes wouldn't track. So if she could look forward, she'd see these giant letters. So that's how she could still read and communicate. Well, every morning I would hand her the summary, like, today I have to run your sister to soccer. I have this. But what I found in there was, Nancy's going to come over and stay with you, or you and I have to go to the Cleveland Clinic, but Son's going to come pick up Sarah and get her to whatever it was. The people, Bryan, that made that work, I honestly forgot about. It was a village, that people were there. And I think that's where, under pressure, if there's any lesson in this, it's that you're not alone. Like when when you're under pressure, if you don't lean on others, you're gonna
fold.
You're gonna implode. You're gonna fold. Yeah.
What's next? What are the challenges in store for the new folks, the mini me's that are now bringing success to the How Bird Sanctuary? What's on the horizon that they're going to have to deal with? And what's next for you, Gail? What are the pressures that you can see on the horizon you're going to have to overcome?
Right. So I think probably the pressure on the staff at the Bird Sanctuary, and they're doing it really well, is to continue its momentum. We've put the right people in place, the right policies in place. And I feel like Julie, after about 2 years, I really feel like it's got more of her personality into a little bit. I feel like she's finally moving forward and not having to live in this. What an awful shadow of being under the founder. And I feel like she's come out from underneath the shadow, and the Bird Sanctuary is in a good place. So of course, when something's in a good place, I got to go find something else to fix.
Yeah.
So about 6 months ago, I jumped onto the board of our county park district. And during the second meeting, I'm actually out of town. I get a notice that we've terminated the executive director. So come back to that meeting, trying to figure out what we do in the interim. And so I've been the interim director, co-director with the president of the board for the last 6 months, to once again, like I did with Ray Melton, let's find out what protocols and policies are not in place that need to be put in place. And so really involved right now at that role with the park district, and really excited with what we're doing there. It's 30 years for the bike trail, 60 years for the park district. It has an incredible staff also. Now we're just empowering them to live out their purpose. And so that's keeping me busy. But the best part, which you probably already know, is I have 3 granddaughters.
Mm.
So Lucy is 2 months, Charlie is 1.5 years, and Eleanor is 3.5. And I get them
That's
3 days
amazing.
a week. And that's
Oh,
my
you
purpose.
do?
I
Oh,
do.
wow.
Yeah. I get them
That's
3 days a week.
cool.
Yeah. So that is, so now, yeah. And I'm back to family and still feel responsible for, assisting at the church with the youth group or the nature center, OBS. I mean, those things fuel me, but I always tell people, those 3 little nuggets come first in anything that's happening. And I think if you had asked my youngest daughter, Sarah, she never felt that she was second fiddle to the bird sanctuary. I mean, what a great childhood. We had owls in the bathtub. She flew Harris hawks. We just, they were always with me. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I know she doesn't begrudge it. I think she's just as proud of it as I am.
Yeah. And I just want to ask one question real quickly. As on the board of the Parks Department, what is your goal? I'm interested in what your purpose is there, because I want to tie it into something I think you're going to say, but I'm interested in what your goal, your purpose is with the parks in your new role there.
So, we're going to improve the accessibility of our parks.
Accessibility.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one of it is, I just think there's so many people who don't even know the parks are there and what those resources are. So my kind of PR marketing exposure, brain goes into action, which is why I'm chairing up these celebrations that are happening over the next 2 months. Because the parks are amazing, and there's aspects of the park. There's so many things that people don't know about the parks. And I think when the local community realizes how this enhances their quality of life, they will continue to support their parks, because one of the reasons we're able to grow is it is supported by tax dollars. So we want the community to know what it is, because we're hoping to continue to have that type of support. It just is. And the parks, I also feel beholden a little bit to the parks, because I walked through the door of Gorman Nature Center 1988 to talk to the director. And it was Steve McKee at that point who actually worked with me and helped us create what is now the Ohio Bird Sanctuary. So I'm just kind of returning something that, helped me out. Now I'd like to go back and support that also.
And folks, if you're listening or watching this show, have you heard the same thing I've heard here about Gail? Gail, you may know this about yourself already, but if you don't, I'm going to tell you anyway. You just care about people. You mentioned the albatross on your back, which was the fact that you now are responsible for people. You mentioned finding people to take over the Ohio Bird Sanctuary that could take care of those who want to come and be a part of it and take it to the next level. And just now I asked you about the parks, and you said, I want, and the same with Ray Melton. I want people to be able to experience it. I want people to love it. I want people to have more access to it. And it seems like everything you've said, even with the stories you've shared about Sam and your grandchildren, it's just all about people for you. It's not about money. It's not about success in the future. It's just about taking care of others. And I just think that's what life's all about. So I congratulate you for that. Did you know that about yourself, Gil?
Well, no, I didn't. But I saw in the gal I used to work with, a good friend. She always said that I always would start a sentence with, "How can I make this easier for you?" And it was interesting. I never realized I started most sentences, "How can I make it easier?" And that was what did come out from the chamber, was that, I guess, one of those things, that I did things with kindness. So yeah, if you met me as a child, I was all about animals, right? Everybody knew I would do animals, but I think I never really realized how much of that tied into that. It's, it's people. And
so final question, why birds?
Why birds? Okay. So why birds? Yeah. One, okay. I'm going to give you another cliche: canary in a coal mine. Okay. Whatever is going on in our environment is going to be blown up in the bird world. We know that with environmental toxins, with DDT, losing the ospreys, the eagles. I mean, look at the comeback by cleaning up our environment.
Oh yeah.
Eagles, wow, over almost 1,000 nests in the state at this point.
It was hard work, but man, the results of just a little bit, right? It was quick.
It's quick. And that's what birds allow us to see. I shortly had a job down in the Dayton area at a nature center where we took care of all wildlife. We had salamander. I'd go to a program, which I can't imagine, Brian, how I did it. I took a salamander, a snake, a possum, a skunk, an owl, a hawk, and a great blue heron. and somehow would do a program in an hour. I must have just been chattering like this. So, but what I learned in a very short period of time there was they did great work, but it was very diluted because they were doing everything. So when I moved up here, one of the things was, four out of the 17 raptors in the state were threatened or endangered. So where do we focus? So that was kind of that purpose. And also when I go in and do a program and talk about a barn owl, I'm talking about the entire food chain. So I can be teaching about the mice, the grasshoppers, right? So if our pinnacle predators are healthy, our whole environment is healthy. So that's sort of how it got channeled towards the birds. It also was something the Nature Center wasn't doing. I often talk with people when they want to start a nonprofit. I'm like, that's already being served in your community. Like, you want to find the niche of what is needed. Just because you want to do it doesn't mean that there's a need for it. And at that time, there obviously was a need for what we were doing, and it has grown to to fill a community need at this point.
And I'm so glad that you did that, and the effects, the ripples are currently being felt for many, many miles. And this is all the entire state that takes advantage of this. It's not just Mansfield. This is a big thing. So thank you for all you've done. If people are listening or watching and want to learn more about nonprofits and starting nonprofits and helping others and anything else that is on their heart, I think that's what you specialize in, Gail, and I think you have a lot to offer. Is there a way they could contact you or learn more about things that you're up to?
Sure. Do you mean like an email address, or what are you?
I don't have to put anything, but if there's a website or if there's some way to reach you, social media contacts, anything you feel comfortable with.
Right.
Fine.
Yes, I am on Facebook, but I don't use Messenger. So I'm old. So I guess the best way would be to reach me through, I would do my Ohio Bird Sanctuary email address would be the best way. So that's just my first and last name and then OBS. So it's GailLaux@gmail.com. That's probably the best way.
That's perfect. In case anybody sees that, we'll have that on the bottom there. But just in case they that won't make too much of a hassle for you, but yet you might be able to help somebody that way that needs some information. So Gail, thank you so much for being a part of the show. More importantly, thanks for all you've done. I know you've heard it 100 times, and it's not why you do it, but you've made an impact, and you're making things better for others, and it wouldn't be there that way. And sometimes we need to step back and look at that and say, good job. Good job, Gail.
We did okay.
We did okay.
We did okay.
Thank you, Gail, for being a part of our show. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for joining us today on Purpose Under Pressure. It's brought to you by Sandler by the Ruby Group. Sellers are under pressure to perform, and Sandler helps you to succeed on purpose. You're going to find every single episode, all 8 seasons worth of Purpose Under Pressure at bryanmediastrategies.com/podcast and wherever you stream your favorite shows. We do this every week, and we will see you next time on Purpose.